When the storm rises, most people look for shelter, but those who walk in the light learn to become the still point in the storm itself. Today we learn what it means to become the anchor. Hello and welcome to the new Ashla Podcast. My name is Justin Gates, and joining me today, as always, my boy Michael Perry.
Hey, fam.
So today we're going to talk about becoming the anchor, Michael.
It's a good topic.
It is a good topic. And no, we're not talking about actual storms. If you're in an emergency, get to shelter. We're talking about these kind of metaphorical storms that we all feel like we're going through. And life does feel like an emergency sometimes, doesn't it? Feels like a storm. And most of us were taught to survive that by escaping it or avoiding it, right?
Yep. Well, I think often we're just trying to get by, trying to make things work. But often we get so lost in the process of doing that we forget the storms around us.
Yeah. And for actual storms, it's prudent and it's wise to get it under cover and under shelter. But that doesn't really work very well for the kind of storms we're talking about today. Those emotional storms, those things that shut us down, that cause us to freeze, that makes us want to be invisible, right? Or shutting down or withdrawing and hoping the moment will pass. The problem with that is that we are the moment. We are in the moment. And if we don't learn to face it, those moments can last forever, it seems like.
I've been guilty of that. I've had it where my life just sort of was chaos around me, but instead of doing something to change those circumstances, to address the problems at hand, it just engulfed me nonstop for years.
Well, I think we're all guilty of that, right?
Yep.
There's no shame there, no blame. It's just
not at all.
When we know better, we do better. But we can't do better until we know better. And as I've said before, the path to wisdom literally starts with ignorance. So that's why we're here, to learn from each other, right? But the way of light, the way of Ashla teaches something different, something way more powerful. What it teaches us with these kind of storms is that true safety comes from remembering your power, remembering the things you can control, remembering where center is, right? It's especially in those times when everything around us is just going absolutely bat crap crazy or pulling us away from center. Now, anchoring is not emotional suppression. Could you say that for me louder? Anchoring is not emotional suppression. It's not clenching your jaw till you break your teeth. It's not holding your breath until you pass out. And it's certainly not pretending that nothing affects me, I'm impervious. You're not. I used to think that, and I learned over and over again. It took me lots of lessons.
I feel this is one of those that does sort of just beat you until you finally submit to its will.
If you don't listen, man, if you don't, you'll get dragged kicking and screaming, man. It's just eventually, right? This is one of those things where we've talked about suffering before, and it could be mental suffering, spiritual suffering. It will keep happening until you take steps to not correct yourself, not fix yourself, right? Because you're not wrong and you're not broken, but there is something that needs your attention. When you start showing it awareness, you start showing it attention. It's all it wants. These are messengers. These are teachers, as we always say. This is the discipline of reclaiming your presence in that moment and choosing intentional stillness, intentional peace over that reaction, the reflective reaction.
Well said.
Especially in today's world, right? We talk about this a lot, how it's just, today's world feels crazy. And, it probably felt crazy back then and into the future, but it really does feel crazy for us now. And it seems like this is a hard thing to do because, as you like to talk about, we are seriously overstimulated.
Well, we're overstimulated and we have so much energy going into these tasks in our daily lives that are just so, not just monotonous, but overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I think in life, I was listening to an interview the other day and something they said really hit home. He's this guy who helps people manage money. And he was dating this girl from, I think, Venezuela. And he's like, so what made you decide to move to America? And she said, you can tell a culture's has it good when what they're fighting over is small things, irrelevant things, not starvation, not...
Right. Yeah, the first world problems, as we call them.
Yeah, no, perfectly said.
Yeah.
Perfectly said. And I've been thinking a lot about that interview because that one line made me really step back and reflect that it's like there's this book I read a couple years back called The Turnings, which is one of my favorite books. It's fascinating watching the patterns of society. And it's just we go through hard times, then we have hard people that then build us up from society, then we have the nomads, then we have the heroes, and then it's followed by the artists. And this whole generational shifting is where things get so easy that things become much easier. It's easier to be overwhelmed by life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, the resilience is just not as front and center because it's not as mandatory to foster and create.
Right. Very few of us have to go through true survival.
Yeah.
We have to create survival, or our brains have nothing to do. Our nervous systems don't have a whole lot to do. And this is why we do this work. We try to retrain them for the moment, for the modern time. People are overstimulated, constantly triggered. We are bombarded with information from every single angle. Things are beeping at us. Things are blinking.
Yeah.
We're bombarded with noise, with urgency, and especially expectations. And expectations that none of us really, if we thought about them, would never agree to. I wouldn't have. and we're kind of plugged into this conscious or this collective nervous system in a way, right? And that thing is frayed and it is exhausted.
No, it's so true.
So what we're talking about today, this anchoring, which is really just a kind of a fancier way to say grounded, right? It is quiet leadership. It's that kind of leadership that doesn't demand attention, but naturally draws others into harmony simply by being steady. So this conversation we're going to have today is what we train ultimately our luminari to be that anchor, be the one so grounded and so centered when shit hits the fan that everybody else naturally comes to them because they are safe, because they are steady, because they are consistent, they are grounded, right? And to me, that's the best kind of leadership. It's that quiet leadership, not like the leadership we see in the world now. It's very loud.
Yeah.
It's very boisterous, and it just drives me crazy.
What's that leadership from a sense of control, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not trusting in the workers to do their stuff, not trusting in the people around them to be able to carry their own.
Well, everything lives in paradox. Everything lives in opposites, whether we like it or not. You know, I know a lot of smart people that say, no, it's not actually really, it's not, it's just, it is what it is. Okay, that's true, but everything has an equal counterbalance to it. This is why we don't try to destroy the shadow or destroy the dark. That's why we don't try to destroy the ego in favor of the spirit. Everything coexists, even if they're paradoxical to each other, because clarity is still possible in chaos. Peace is possible in chaos. Peace still exists, even when the world around you is not feeling very peaceful. And you don't have to mirror the instability around you. That's what we're talking about as an anchor, which is hard to do, right? I mean, we get pulled like this, and it's really easy to fall into that temptation to just get sucked into the chaos and the screaming and the shouting and the chest beating and all the whatevers.
Yeah. Well, and it's either that or then being passive, you know, it's the two sides of the spectrum at hand here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's finding that middle ground where if you're too aggressive, it's being able to relax more. It's being able to master those emotions next to being passive, which is learning self-advocacy or standing up for yourself. You know, there's a delicate dance that happens and it's so unique to each individual, but at the heart of it is becoming that assertive leader that we're talking about.
Yeah. And there's an axiom that lays the foundation for today's show. One who walks the path of light does so with acceptance and contentment, free of conflict. And the idea of anchoring, being that anchor, not just for yourself, but it radiates outside of you too. That is a living expression of the truth we're sharing today. It is the embodiment of that internal peace and stillness that doesn't destroy or defeat the chaos. It integrates it, right? We're trying to integrate because we seek harmony. We seek peace. And again, peace does not mean quiet. Peace does not mean lack of things happening around you. It just means no matter what's happening around you, you find center, you find stillness, you find peace.
Well, and it's like, I mean, part of the paradox with this is it also doesn't mean complacency.
That's right.
Even then, without complacency, it's being able to truly objectively view things as they are. You know, you see a lot going on in society where people are avoiding complacency, but in turn, it's more, I don't like this, so I'm leaving. Instead of how can I either address this properly or create a better situation for myself.
Yes. It is the epitome of service to others. That's why we say we got to get our crap together before we could truly serve and truly help people, right? We got to make sure that we become that calm harbor. And we don't become that by controlling the storm. We become that by purposely choosing to not be shaped by it, no matter what's happening around you. And the moment that you choose that, you become the shelter. You are the shelter. And the storm around you tends to, the storms never go away. They come and go, but it tends to be less threatening. So this is what we're exploring today. This is really what it means to return to our center, to stand rooted and grounded when life feels unsteady, which it does constantly for all of us.
Yeah. Well, I think this also really just ties into, the internal locus of control. When you can accept the things that are out of your control and work with the things that are, you create this field of pure potentiality, because that means when you're investing effort into things that are within your control, you get outcomes. Yeah. Next to stressing and fretting and trying to manage anything and everyone and every situation outside of you, yes, which often is just to your ruin.
Yeah. Yeah. It creates more suffering for you and others. Everything we do radiates out. So to me, it seems more wise to choose the things that creates a better outcome for everything that I touch. Right. And really, at the end of the day, this episode is about responding versus reacting. There's another axiom that I'll kind of throw in here in passing. Never give in to darkness. Should an insidious force take hold, let calm and peace be your guide. Right?
Yeah.
To become the anchor. What does it mean to become the anchor, Michael? What are we saying?
To be the anchor is to be the one that is not ruled by their emotions. Does not mean that you don't listen to them, because they can be guides. But it's being able to act from a place of integrity. It's being able to act from a place of clarity. Yeah. Because often when these storms arise, our judgment is skewed, and so is our internal state. And being able to bring yourself to back to peace, back to being grounded, gives you the clarity to see through the storm and really look at the situation for what it is and what you can do about it.
So to really understand what we're talking about, we need to clear away some misconceptions. This isn't about being overly stoic or rigid or completely emotionally shut down. There are balance in all things. Stoicism is not bad if it's not allowed to be taken to the extreme. You think Marcus Aurelius never loved? Do you think that Marcus Aurelius never sought truth or connection? He talks a lot about integrity and truth, but do you think he didn't care about life? These are our ethos: love, truth, integrity, connection, sanctity of life, right? So I think there's a misconception about being super rigid and super shut down all the time and being apathetic versus not engaging type of thing.
Well, it's back to that paradox.
Yeah. To be under control, but to also honor these very human things that we need. Love and truth and connection. We need to respect life. We need these things. And I don't care if that guy on TikTok comes back and says, "Not me." Well, I think you're kidding yourself, bro. Yeah. We all need these things.
Well, I think so many people go through life trying to.
Well, we may not want to admit it, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. Like one trend I see everywhere is so many people want to have that air of having it all together, having it all figured out, when none of us really do. But people will stand on their high hill while it is burning around them because they refuse to acknowledge, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't the right path.
Yeah. So this process, this practice, it's a discipline, really. It begins with us. If we can't be steady, no one can be steady around us, right? And this goes back to reoccurring themes that you and I talk about all the time, about recognizing those triggers and those subtle little shifts inside our body, in our mind. It could be tightening of the chest, or when your thoughts start to race really fast, or that familiar pull back to our old wounds and things that scare us. And as always, Michael, the first step to this is what?
Awareness.
Imagine I do this all the time, and it always confuses you. Man, like I'm imagining I'm Tony Stark, and I got this giant screen around me, and I'm just like pause. Like the pause button's like this big, and I'm like pause. You laugh, it's funny, but I do this in real life, right?
Yeah.
I do this in real life, and when something around me starts to annoy me, I'll do this. Like I'm in a big movie. I just pause it when I'm driving.
Would you say it's a way you ground yourself?
It is, yeah. It's definitely a grounding. Definitely, for me. But pausing is what's first. Because when these things start happening, we got to stop and listen to the messages. We have to let our teachers teach us, right? So we pause, and then we can sit in those moments and say, okay, I see you and I see you. What can I help you with? Yeah, I hear you. Okay, but we're not doing that right now. So you guys get in the back seat, put your seatbelts on, and be quiet, right?
Yeah.
We're going to come back to center before we speak, or before we react, before we get kind of swept away in that tornado of emotion, which again happens to all of us. Here's what anchoring provides: presence, not control. People who are good anchors, they don't try to dominate the situation. Now, I hear you right now saying, well, what if it's an emergency? Well, you still got to get back to center so you can react professionally, so you can react appropriately and use as much force as necessary. Only that's necessary. That doesn't mean you sit there and you go, there's a guy here with a stick. It's going to beat the crap out. That's not what I'm talking about here. But we have this tendency mentally to try and dominate things, right? That's what holds us on. And we grab and we hold on. We don't let other people, if something's happening in front of me, and this has happened many times, I'm not always the right person for the right job. She has to step in. She's the better person to deal with whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm always trying to dominate everything because I'm big and strong, right? I might guerrilla my way through it and then make everything worse. Whereas she might be the best thing.
Well, I think one side note with that is as an anchor, as a leader with the people in your life, I think a lot of people get stuck that whole high horse thing of like, I'm going to figure everything out. Right. Utilize the people that you have. Mm-hmm. If you need medical attention for someone in front of you and you have no medical experience, call upon those who can benefit the situation. Don't try to figure it out.
Right.
It's kind of a rough example, but it ties in.
No, it's a perfect example. Dude, I have worked with people in my old life. We were always the first ones on scene. Didn't matter what it was. But do you think, just because I know first aid, that I'm going to call the fire department and say, nah, hey guys, yeah, just forget it. I'm going to take care of this one.
Yeah, never.
No, I'm not. I don't want to be there doing this. This is not my expertise.
Exactly.
I can help. I can do things that can prolong a life in an emergency, but I want you here yesterday. Get here faster than you think you can, because I'm not the right guy for that job. If I wanted to be a doctor, I'd have been a doctor. I don't like certain parts of that.
No, it's so true, though. And I see so many of these people. This is why the pause is so important.
Yeah.
When you're able to bring yourself back to center, you're not going to be acting from a place of chaos, from a place of sporadicness. You'll be able to compose yourself and really evaluate the tools at hand or what needs to be done from a much more grounded place.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's true. And for Ashla, for us, it is spiritual intelligence. It is the spiritual intelligence to remain flexible and compassionate and aware, even when everything is moving at lightning speed around us. That's also why the pause. It's almost like kind of slowing down time, right? Because this allows us to stay grounded. without becoming frozen or without running. It allows us to stay open, but at the same time, not overwhelmed.
I always think of like the Sherlock Holmes movies where he stops and he plans out all his,
I was just telling her that the other day. She'd never seen that clip. And I was like, we were watching something, and I was like, it's like that. That's like the Robert Downey Jr. version of Sherlock Holmes, where he's in the fight and he's like plans it all out, and he like goes through it, and it's all slow, it's all deliberate and stuff, and then all of a sudden you pop back to the moment, and he's just like going at it. He just does it like real fast. Yeah.
Yep.
That movie was good.
So good.
I was never a big fan of Sherlock Holmes, but I like that one. I know I'm probably gonna get some hate mail for that, but
for shame.
So when we're grounded in the living light and the living force, the flow, right? Clarity becomes easy. Presence becomes easy. And the things start to settle, and the things start to soften, and the things start to recalibrate around us. They really, really do. You almost got to take my word for that, because I can't really demonstrate that for you. But response comes from wisdom. Reacting comes from the ego, right?
Yeah. Every time. But I think that's an important way to look at it too, because when our emotions do take over the show, there is some type of survival instinct kicking online that's trying to manage and firefight the situation at hand. But if you can bring yourself back to spirit, bring yourself back to a place of calmness, you no longer have this chaos trying to run the show. Because I guarantee you, as you master this pause, your reaction without the pause will be dramatically different from the one with the pause.
Right, because it's intentional. It's wise, it's spacious, and it's rooted in awareness. You're responding to what is actually happening. What is actually happening in this moment, right? Sometimes we get stuck in the what ifs or the I don't cares. This anchoring is the practice, the discipline of choosing response over the ego's reaction. Choosing wisdom over ego. We don't fight shadows with force or darkness with force. We integrate darkness and shadow through steady Eddie practice, right? And alignment. And we hold ourselves to that alignment. And that alignment changes the environment around us. It changes what people see and feel from us. Again, it's not about trying to overpower what's happening. I don't care how big and strong you are. You cannot physically muscle everything that's happening around you.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like what you're talking about with the magnetism we have when we start to cultivate this type of inner peace. I think of this quote, the best leaders are often the ones that don't want to lead. And it's not necessarily that they don't want to lead, but there's this level of temperance to the individuals that master this.
Right.
That's so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, and they seem to have a lot of stuff put together, don't they?
Yep.
They seem to and that brings us to some more misconceptions. This anchoring is not something you're born with. In fact, it probably gets trained out of you a lot when you're little.
Yeah.
It's not a personality trait. It's not reserved for people that seem to be naturally calm or unshakable. They didn't start out that way, I promise you.
Guaranteed.
This steadiness is trained. It's trained. Now, of course, do some people learn faster? Some people assimilate faster? Some people align faster? Of course. But that's just how they're wired. But we all can be this way. And time is not of the essence here. If it takes you 6 months and it takes your buddy 3 weeks, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, you should never use others as a comparison in any part of this journey.
It's horrible. It's horrible, man. So, but again, this is a muscle that we have to work. And just like our physical muscles, we can train our minds to be steady, and we can train our spirit to be aligned with the rest, with the flow, with our body and our minds, right?
Yeah.
This is a skill that grows with time and practice and intention. Every time you choose to pause instead of react, it grows a little bit better. And you start to build that resilience that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Every time you take a breath before speaking, every time you return back to yourself, back into your body, back into your nervous system, you start to strengthen this muscle.
Well, it's like, I know we harp on it every episode, but it's such an important part of all this work is understanding your nervous system. Your nervous system is where those emotions live, is where those triggers live, and is where the ego lives. Learning to manage the nervous system, learning how to quiet it, calm it, whatever you need to do, is of the utmost importance when it comes to self-mastery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. It's literally nervous system mastery and spiritual alignment at the same time. It's no wonder why so many ancient practices focus on the center of our bodies in a line, in a straight line, all the way down our what? Down our spine.
Yeah.
Our spine. Yeah, exactly. That was the example I was using, the line around the spine. And then if you go into that deeper practice where there's like a billion of them, they all end up at nerve centers and nerve endings and things like that. So you practice by pausing and letting your breath become an anchor for you in those times. Your awareness becoming an anchor. Your connection to the living force, the living light, the light of creation becomes an anchor. This isn't the kind of training that requires grand movements and gestures and all this stuff. Those are good too, but this is more of a quiet practice, right?
Well, and it takes a lot of diligence. I mean, this is something you do have to practice. One of the hardest lessons I learned on the healing journey, I think why so many people struggle who are out there in the healing scene now, is you can gain all the awareness in the world, but without experience, without practice, you're never going to be able to master this. You got to be able to put yourself in those situations, because the minute that nervous system kicks on, your programming's running the show. So you got to be able to go into those moments and start working on reversing it. And it is brutal. It is not something that once you know it's a thing, it's going to just go away. That is just the first step. Steps 2 through 20 is going into those situations, getting triggered, and doing something different.
It'll be easier. It'll be easier.
Every time.
It'll be easier. And there'll be less tears. There'll be less blood. Be less pain each time. And you'll start to see that the suffering that you've been under lessens by a lot. And this is the point of the show where I'll say, if you need help doing that, it's fine. Seek help. There's lots of people in the world waiting to help you with the things we're talking about. We can help you with the things you're talking about, that we're talking about. But the fact is, we cannot serve people in this capacity until we have learned to navigate our own problems. If our inner world is chaotic, no amount of wisdom, no amount of intention or self-help books or religion or anything will create that steadiness for you externally. You must align. You must internalize these things. And you can only do that through practice, practice, practice. And it's what you just said a minute ago was perfect. Those of us who are anchors, we are stable because we have learned the hard way through practice. And you're going to learn the hard way too. It's going to hurt, and I'm sorry. There's no other way to do it. We have to learn how to self-regulate in those moments where we just want to explode or collapse or shut down or escape.
Yeah.
But as we teach here, Michael, strength does not come from tightening our grip around things. It doesn't come from pushing harder. It doesn't come from holding ourselves together by force. This is the point where Justin tells you, like almost every episode, the strength that we develop here comes from surrender, not strain. We must let go.
The most powerful thing you can do for yourself. The more you can surrender, the more you can release your need to control things, the better your life will become, and I can promise you that.
Yeah, I'd bet my house on it. I'd bet my house on it any day of the week. It comes from surrendering the belief that you must control every single moment, because you can't. And to do so is to just invite more suffering. It comes from trusting that higher thing for you, whatever it is. I'm not going to tell you what to believe, but trusting in what we call the light to guide what our fears try to manage for us. It comes from letting go of urgency and stepping into presence. Anxiety about the future, pain from the past, those things are managed outside of the moment. Well, we manage them in the moment by addressing them, by pointing them out and then letting them go. You can't fight your pain in the past. You can't fight your anxiety in the future. You You can only try to integrate those things now in the present by being present. And this is where it starts to become transformational, like we were just talking about. Because the longer you can hold your center from moment to moment, something that might feel a little subtle, but really powerful happens. You will calibrate your internal state to that most grounded presence in the room. You will be like the pillar holding up the ceiling. Because we do what? Human beings tend to synchronize around each other, don't they?
No. No, it's honestly one of the craziest things is how true that statement is. If you have a chaotic boss, there's a good chance that trickles down to everyone. Same goes for a passive boss. Everyone sort of starts to be more passive in the workplace. But if you got someone who is grounded and is rooted in strength, who has balance, it spreads.
Yeah. Yeah. And this really transforms things to where no force is required, no authority, no overt authority is required, no pressure, just presence. Just show up authentically. There's another axiom that kind of points to this. If you've been sincere in your efforts when progress eludes you, do not force action. Simply accept that you've done all you can do. Because really
that's a hard pill for some people to swallow.
It is. But what it's telling us to do is to reject use of force and embrace trust. It is to understand that you cannot push your way into calm. You surrender into it. You breathe into it. You allow it. So let's talk about some of the shadows that prevent us from anchoring or being the anchor. Every light casts a shadow.
Man, we talked about one already, control. I tell you what. And this isn't just for the tyrannical leaders. This is most people's coping mechanism, whether they're trying to control through presence and authority or they're trying to control through manipulation, right? It's like I used to think that I was so perfect in relationships and I enabled, but it was always to try to meet an ends. And it took a lot of work for me to be able to step back and be like, holy crap, that was toxic.
You didn't think you could be the toxic one?
No, man, I tell you what, I thought I shit gold, man. I was like, I'm a stand-up man. I mean, and I am. And
I read all the books. I listened to all the podcasts. I met all the gurus and all the life coaches, and I can't be the toxic one. That's impossible. It's just ignorance, which is a good thing. It's the first step into wisdom. So another one is avoidance. This one's kind of sneaky. This shadow's sneaky because it looks like calm. It looks like you're just, and we do this by shutting down emotionally or numbing ourselves up or detaching or disappearing, right? It's almost like you tell yourself, no, I'm good. I am good. But you've literally left your body. The lights are on, but you're not there. You're gone. That's not anchoring.
I think some other things that fall into this too is like hyper independence, which I kind of fell into. It's like if I just manage all the important things, then I don't have to worry about what this person's doing or these people doing because I know it's taken care of.
Yeah.
But again, it ties back into control.
Here's another one for you. And no, I'm not calling you out, not consciously anyway. But another shadow of this is martyrdom.
Well, that's those codependents out there. That was one of them. It's a rough place to be because of the work required to fix this type of wound.
Yeah. Well, it gets awful tiring carrying everybody's burdens around, doesn't it?
No, exactly. Or
taking responsibility for feelings and emotions that aren't even yours. You're just having to deal with them.
Yeah, you feel responsible for everyone.
Yes.
That felt a little called out there.
Maybe just a little. I called myself out for being too stoic, man. That's something you call me out for all the time. And then another one is literally being addicted to the chaos.
Man, I think this is one of the greatest plagues in the world today because when people don't realize how their nervous system controls them, they're constantly chasing that emotional high that they think is just normal. But man, it's a one crap show after another.
Well, especially because we talked about being overstimulated before. And that's not just our phones. It's literally noise and everything's happening all the time. And silence threatens that because this stuff dominates the world, the landscape, doesn't it? So when stuff starts to calm down, it's like, wait a minute, something's wrong. Especially if you come from a place of conflict where there's just tons and tons of conflict. And that, I'm not just talking about wars, although that's something that's happening too over the last 30 years, but the internal conflict in relationships, conflict in the family dynamic. Peace doesn't feel real, does it? It feels fake.
Well, it's like everything I went through over the last 8 years, like one of the hardest things I am still struggling with is learning that everything feels peaceful. Not only is that okay, but it's not going anywhere. It's like that constant hyping myself up, waiting for the next shoe to drop, something else to go awry in my life.
Yeah. Well, and so there are some truths behind these shadows, things that we must address and call out and have conversations with ourselves about before we can integrate these, right? A dysregulated ego cannot anchor to anything because it has its own agenda, and that is to keep you safe. It doesn't want stability in the way that we're talking about. It wants stimulation. It wants to be active and to be in charge of how we go about things, right? And it seeks that intensity because intensity makes it feel alive, because it doesn't see itself as being harmful. After all, it was built into us to protect us. It's almost like a rogue program that has one mission: keep Michael alive by any and all means necessary.
Yeah.
Even if I'm destroying him and breaking his bones to do it.
Well, it's all learned patterns, right? We learn how to show up in the way we learn how to manage different situations. And yes, these parts have our best intentions in mind, but that does not mean they have the best strategies for the best life.
No, because they have a split second to think about it. What we're talking about is preparing ourselves by practice and discipline to deal with these things when they come. We know a lot of this stuff is going to happen to us because that's what human beings are, and that's what human beings do. We are subject to these things. You're not going to find your peace and center and then the whole world leave you alone. It's just not how it's going to work. You were talking about we must practice these things. This is one of those things where the world gives us plenty of chances to practice. Now, having these shadows, which by the way, we all do, light always casts a shadow. Doesn't disqualify you from becoming an anchor. If you have these things, and you probably do, at least one, that's where you got to practice. That's where you got to put more.
Yeah.
And you got to trust yourself.
One of my favorite exercises to do is like find someone you trust and have a hard conversation, something you disagree about. Let those triggers come up. Let those responses kick in. And then learn how to manage yourself with those responses coming online. Get in your body and separate your mind from your body.
So let's talk about how we become an anchor for others. Because this is what happens when you learn to ground so well that you become an anchor for yourself. Again, this radiates outwards. And this is where something extraordinary starts to happen. You literally start affecting the people around you. And we do anyway, chaotic or not. But this is where you start to affect people around you in ways that you designed, in ways that you practice, in ways that you built that strength up. And it starts to happen in ways that almost seem effortless, because this becomes your new habits, your new patterns, your new being, right?
No.
So,
I think...
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, starting with it, just presence. Giving people your presence is one of the most powerful things you can do. Being able to just hear what's going on with them, being steadfast as you listen, and knowing what they're looking for. Some people, like one of the things when Allison's venting to me is I'll ask her, do you want an ear? Do you want advice? Or do you just want to get it out of your system? It's just like, or do you want a distraction? That was what the other one is. And it's just like learning social cues, right? Because sometimes, more often than not, people don't want advice.
No, because they're still trying to control what's happening.
Yeah.
Which is, it is what it is. I'm not bad-mouthing anybody here. That's what we do. I fall into that sometimes where I already have a plan, and this drives her crazy. I've already paused. I've already breathed. I already know what's going to happen next because I've already decided what I'm going to do, right? Regardless of what anybody else does, I'm going to do this, right? And I'm just telling her, because it's not always fun talking to myself all the time. I'm just telling you, this is what happened. This is what I'm going to do. But to be an anchor, like you said, is to be present. You don't have to lecture everybody. You don't have to correct everybody. You don't have to teach or guide everybody, especially verbally, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, most of the time people don't need more information. They just need somebody stable, a safe spot to sit with, to where they can start to go through this. When you first met me, many years before you became my student, I never lectured you. I never guided you, never taught you. I just sat with you and we had conversations about whatever it is we were talking about.
Yeah.
You know? And then when you came to me and said, can you mentor me on these things? Yes, I can. And then it becomes a different dynamic, but I don't always lecture or correct or teach.
Not very often. You might teach whenever I ask for it, but especially like your favorite saying, like you don't got opinions.
I don't have opinions. I don't. And someone out there that knows me probably said, "Oh, bullshit, you do." I don't. When I speak, I'm speaking from what I believe to be the truth, and that's it. That's it. I don't have opinions, and that really bugs people, man. I don't know.
Oh, there's a couple times like, just give me your opinion, dang it. It's like, I don't got one, man. Like,
I can't give you my opinion on this because I can't possibly completely stand in your shoes and make the best decision for you. When people want someone's opinion, especially in this kind of setting, they want them to make the decision for them. And I'm not going to do that. No, I need you to find your best solution. I need you to find your best avenue, because it will not be the same thing that I can do or will do, right? Goes back to the law of confusion. You must discern that. I am here for you to bounce the ball off of until you come to a decision, if that's what I need to do, right? Because people just simply feel safer around people that are calm, truly calm, not masking, but truly calm. That's why we breathe with each other sometimes, right? For freaking out, breathe with me. Hey, here, breathe with me.
yep.
And those first 25 breaths might be just all crazy, but man, you'll hit you'll hit that synchronicity, and you'll start breathing together like you're sharing the same lungs. And that's right. Your regulated nervous system starts to regulate theirs. Your groundedness becomes a stabilizing influence for them. And you can change the emotional tone of an entire room. And you don't do this through force. Because, Michael, this is something that you are, or something you become.
You know, it's like, I think one of the things my wife and I do, if one of us gets overstimulated or gets overwhelmed, the other one will be there and just hold them in that space. And that like, our co-regulation skills are just so on point with that, because often, even if we're both a little triggered, like if one's more triggered, which usually is the case, it's like, all right, you need the space more than I do right now. Here, let's work through this together. It's all going to be okay. And then sometimes I need the grounding. It's like, but it's being able to have that co-regulation and being around people you trust, which also ties into that lack of control, right? Being able to trust people. Because I think a lot of that avoidance stems from, if I don't show myself for how I truly feel, I don't have to worry about being vulnerable or being hurt or being let down.
Right. And when you're in this kind of environment, we were talking about, I'm not giving you opinions, because I'm not going to make your decisions for you. I'm not responsible for your decisions. I'm not responsible for your feelings and emotions. But when I can provide a place for you to sit without judgment, sit where it's calm, sit where we can breathe, those solutions emerge just naturally, because we're starting to push away the fog. Because what we're doing is we're together, we're coming back into resonance with the universe.
Yeah.
There's another axiom that kind of caps this. You cannot always use force against that which opposes you. There are times when it is wise to endure opposition in favor of a peaceful resolution. Endurance. That only comes through pain and practice
Another word that came to mind for me was resilience. Like,
Yes.
resilience is done when you are in the fire. It's being able to learn to handle that stress. And it doesn't mean suppress, but it means how to manage life when life gets hard.
Your piece becomes an unwritten permission slip for others to respond, for others to find a new pathway emotionally, a new reference point for them to now grow from there. And you're not always leading them with words unless you are a teacher or a guide or a mentor. And even then, you should be modeling the behavior more than you are speaking of what you're supposed to be doing. You can, really, you're demonstrating a truth before they really even can understand the words. So let's talk about some practical anchoring in everyday life.
Well, I think tying back into that nervous system, just learning how to breathe. I know we harp on breathing all the time, and you hear it in all the different scenes out there, but there is a reason it is so powerful. Box breathing, the calming breath, allowing yourself to regulate your nervous system, to bring yourself down to baseline. Breathing is where you will find that pause and where you will gain mastery over yourself.
Blood without oxygen is useless to us. Breathing is everything. Without oxygen, the blood has really nothing to carry. That's why it is the center point of literally everything out there, every scene, as you said, right? And this isn't just something we do in deep meditation or during these really major, crazy life crises, right? This is something that we do in even the smallest moments of each moment, of each day, the quiet moments, the ordinary moments, the ones where our choices shape everything in our life without even realizing it. That's why it's important to integrate this into every moment. Be the anchor. So yes, breathe before speaking. Second is to recognize the triggers. Notice when you're being pulled into an emotional contagion, we'll call it. Right? Because we absorb each other's emotions. We absorb each other's energy. We absorb each other's stress. If someone is super anxious, stressed, or they're just angry, your energy may try to naturally match theirs so you can have a connection. We do this naturally. Anchoring means recognizing when this black hole is trying to suck us into it and saying, nope, not going there. I'll sit with you, but I'm not getting sucked into whatever this is, right? We don't have to rise and fall with people's waves. We just don't. You can remain steady on your little tugboat.
Sometimes it's good to assess the situation. Yes. Someone's flaring up, super angry. There's no headway you're going to gain there. Maybe it's best to disengage from this until the emotions have calmed down. I will never forget, I took a class on having good arguments in a relationship. And it's like after the heart rate gets past 99, like you disengage from the conversation because no one's going to be acting from a rational mind at that point.
No, their body's freaking out. That's just physiology. That skill has saved my life more times than I can count. Assessing, knowing when to step in and when not to step in. Which brings us to the next one. Intention and presence over urgency. Because we want to act. We want to go out and save the world. We want to, do all these things right now. And we got to solve all the problems right now. But that, as you said, especially if you get your heart rate up and your body starts to react as if everything is urgent, you start leading to mistakes and misunderstandings. And then that creates unnecessary conflict. Now we're fighting for no reason because we got sucked into that black hole. And again, anchoring invites us to slow down, to pause, to breathe, and move into deliberate action and deliberate intention instead of panic.
It's often in those moments we want everything to be okay right now, especially when everything is going through the roof. And it's just 5 minutes is not going to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
More than likely.
Yeah. It's not. And even if it is, well, you do what you got to do, and then you make sure you give yourself that 5 or 10 minutes afterwards, or immediately afterwards, to come back to center. This is why when you see first responders or soldiers or nurses and doctors and whoever, when they react, they're going to their lowest level of training. and they fall back to that. That's why it's important for them to train and train and train and train and train all the time. Because even the people that literally their job is to react to the most horrible crisis, their bodies, their minds start going into crazy mode too. That's why it's important for them to train. For us in this atmosphere, we say we fall back to our lowest level of what? Healing. That's why we must continue to practice. What about grounding, physical grounding, when our mind starts to freak out? Like, feet on the ground or relaxing or unclenching our hands, things like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I tell you what, one of the greatest practices, I started meditating every day, which I'm not saying meditate in these high pressure moments. That's going to be a little difficult. But yeah, looking at the cues in your body. When I first start meditating, my first 2 minutes is to grounding, which is checking my shoulders. I drop them. Am I clenching my jaw? Where am I tense? Allowing my body to relax, because that's pulling me out of that move ahead mode and gets me into a place of stillness, a place of calm.
Mm-hmm.
Allowing yourself room to meditate throughout the day, not for these high intense moments, but allowing meditation to be a part of your lifestyle can help gain you so much power over your mind.
And it'll fight that cortisol, and it'll fight that hidden stress. It'll help you breathe better. Remember, your body needs air, needs oxygen. And the better you breathe, the better your body feels. There's lots of benefit. Now, there's no downside to that I've seen, unless you're doing the wrong kinds of meditation that you're not ready for yet, like kind of extreme void meditations when you're dealing with a lot of PTSD or something. You should not do those without somebody, some professional present. But there is no downside to breathing, I promise you. It literally keeps you alive. If that's the only upside for you, then keep doing that. It's good for you. There's something that every officer is taught in what we call the force continuum, and that's officer presence. There's a reason why that's the first and foremost thing, right? Because we must allow our energy and our presence to settle the room before we even speak, right? It's a reason why that's the first thing, officer presence, and then verbal commands, and then hard commands, and then so on and so forth, okay? Your presence must be able to be felt and seen before you ever utter a word. Because I can tell you, there have been more than 100 times, probably way more than that, when saying less was more powerful for me than even saying the right thing. Just showing up. Right? It shifts dynamics almost instantly. And people respond. And I mean people, like everyone in that room responds to your state long before it responds to anything you're saying.
Yeah. Well, it's just, you can always say something after the silence, but if you allow words to carry your thoughts, your emotions in the heat of the moment, you can't take that back.
That's a very good point. You cannot take that back. You might actually say, and I've said this to her, gosh, I really wish I didn't say that. I know I can't take it back, but I'm really regretting saying that to you right now, right?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's perfect. Yeah, you can't take that back. You can always show up differently next time, but once you say something that's hurtful or that's out of pocket, it's there forever, man. They say everything's, the internet is forever. Yeah, there was something before the internet that was forever too. The things you said to someone you love in a hurtful way. We didn't need the internet for that.
No, we didn't.
So do you have any final thoughts for the show today?
One thing I love that you brought up in this conversation is that this isn't something that's only for the select few. Anyone can hit this point. Really think about that scale of aggressive and passive and where you fall on it and the steps you need to take to become more assertive. Whether that's you need to learn to stop controlling so much or allowing your anger to rule you, or you're letting fear control you and you're not advocating for yourself. Find balance within your life. But above all, don't make the goal being right at the middle. Take the steps from where you're at, wherever that's at. This isn't a race. This isn't a comparison. This is just you showing up for you and learning how to get to the top of the mountain by going step by step and not jumping to the top, because that's where you will fail.
Yeah. Well said.
Practice, practice, practice.
Practice, practice, practice. I knew you weren't going to let me down today. I knew you were. You coined that. I give you all the credit for that.
I'll take it.
It's deserved. It's deserved. I might have said it to you before that we ever did the show, but you kept on. You held on to it.
Yep. I did learn it from you, but yeah, I definitely took that from you.
I may have made him say it a lot. Practice, practice, because it's important. So the exercise we're going to do today, the still point practice. And the purpose is to start to train our mind and our body and our spirit to become that stable center of light, of stillness, of peace in chaotic environments, which we find ourselves in all the time, especially the ones we can't escape from, the ones that are in here. So, as always, you guys know how much I love to put my hand on my heart. I love it. Feels good. First step is we're going to sit comfortably and fix your posture, right? Let's get a good posture. No slouching here. Sit up and we're going to place our hand over our heart. And on the inhale, we're going to say, I return. On the exhale, we're going to say, I anchor. And as you're breathing this, as you're breathing in, saying, I return. And as you're exhaling, I anchor. I want you to visualize a beautiful, bright column of light aligning you and grounding you, going right through the top of your head and down that perfect, beautiful spine, because you're sitting all upright but comfortable. Don't break your bones here. And I want you to bring to mind a person or situation that's filled with turmoil, something you're dealing with in the moment or lately. Now, without trying to fix anything, I want you to radiate that light, that column of light outward. And I want you to radiate its steadiness and its consistency. And I want you to allow that light to guide the field, guide the action, guide the intention, guide your motivations, not your mind. We're not judging this, because an anchor does not force change. We invite, we allow, we get out of the way for things to transform us, right? And then, of course, every time you do this exercise, I want you to write down what you experienced. Keep that information handy, because as you do this practice more and more and more and more, you'll start seeing a shift in how you start to think about dealing with this stuff. Any extra tips and tricks on the exercise for today?
No, that was good.
Our 5 affirmations for anchoring. 5 exactly. I don't know why I said 5, because we usually do 5 maybe. 5 is the perfect number here.
5.5.
5.5. I'm the calm center where light gathers and grows. My presence creates stability for myself and others. In chaos, I remain grounded in the living force. I anchor myself in purpose, clarity, and peace. My steadiness is a gift that shifts the energy of every room I enter. And our journaling prompts for this episode. Where do I lose my center most easily, and why? What does anchoring feel like in my body? Who in my life benefits most when I am steady and grounded? What beliefs or fears disrupt my ability to become an anchor? What daily practice can help me return to my inner still point? Hint, the exercise I just gave you. There's one way. So, look, you're not always going to be the anchor all the time. It's not about perfection. It's about showing up. It's about presence. Presence over perfection every time. And it's never been about controlling the world around us. It's never been about tightening our grip or pushing and forcing until we give out, or making everything bend to our will. You will bend to me because I demand it, right? Anchoring is about alignment with love and truth and integrity and connection and the reverence for life, the sanctity of life. It's about aligning with the light. It's remembering that peace is not something that you chase. It's something that you remember and that returns to you and that you return to. It's not something that you discover or uncover. Something that you allow to happen. It's there. And when you steady yourself, you steady the world around you. Your presence becomes that quiet protection, that quiet place, that place of stability. And not only just for your own heart and for your own good, for the hearts and others connected to you. that presence becomes protection. And that silence becomes guidance. And that stillness becomes strength. Those of us who are the anchor we're not resisting the storm. Storms happen, whether we want them to or not. We're the ones who remembers who we are within it. The one who stands rooted in that truth. The one who chooses clarity over chaos and awareness over impulse, and truth over fear. This is what spiritual maturity looks like. This is what emotionally mastery looks like. It's what it feels like. And this is what transformation becomes when it's lived instead of forced. So this week, I invite you to practice the still point exercise at least once a day. And you only need to spend a few minutes on it. But every time, even outside of that exercise, every time you pause, every time you breathe before you speak, every time that you do your best to show up more calm, more stable, you will become the anchor. Those muscles will get beefy, man. You keep doing these practices. And there's some things I want you to notice, and there's things you'll start to notice. How your presence will transform conversations, how it will actually transform the energy in your relationships and the people around you. How people will start responding differently to you because of your calm and steadiness, right? I want you to notice how your clarity creates space for others to find their own anchors, for them to become the anchor. And I just want to leave you with this. May the living light rise within you like a quiet sunrise. And may your heart remain unmoved by the winds that shake the world. And may your presence become a sanctuary for yourself and for all those who cross your path. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Please check out all our socials, our YouTubes, our TikToks, Facebooks, our Spotify. Well, you're listening on Spotify. And of course, our website, newashla.com.
Best website ever.
Best website ever. So until next time, with love and gratitude, ad lucem.
Ad lucem.